This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. On the show, you'll hear from leading Australian business owners as they share the lessons they've learned building their companies. You'll learn from their successes as well as some of the challenges they faced along the way. We also talk to experts from a range of fields who share specialised techniques you can use to improve your business. I'm your host, Savan Tuna, and I'm a director at Alexander Spencer, and I'm really passionate about helping Australian businesses succeed. Many small business owners know the struggle, staring at a confusing mess of spreadsheets filled with customer data. So how do you move on from spreadsheets? How can you use customer relationship management, CRM tools to improve customer interactions and satisfaction? Today, we're talking to Andrew Martin, CEO of Teamgate. Teamgate is a CRM platform designed to strengthen sales experience for businesses. Andrew will share his story from the military to the business world and how Teamgate grew. You'll learn what CRM is and why it's important, and how future communication will affect customer interactions. Let's get started. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me on The Bottom Line today. I'm really excited about this episode. It's sales and customers and relationship, and doing the good things for customers is a passion of mine. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. But for those that don't know you, tell us about who you are, your background, and love to know a little bit more about you.
I am the CEO of Teamgate CRM, but I guess my background is probably a little bit different to those that have moved into the SaaS space or the management space. So coming out of school, I've done a heap of different jobs, but I originally started in youth work. Again, it comes back to that passion of helping people. And then when I was 21, I made the decision to join the Australian military. So I served the military for about 9 years as an army officer. And then I had my only son, my first child, in 2021. And that changed some of my personal priorities. So I soon transitioned out of the military and into the business world, which has brought me into Teamgate and into another position where I can help people and help small businesses.
Tell us about the transition from Army. What did you do at the Army?
I was an artillery officer. So throughout my career, I served for about 9 years. It started with leadership training. As an officer, you do a lot of leadership, managing people and assets, which isn't too dissimilar to what I do now. So yeah, throughout my career, I managed between 30 and 100 soldiers under my command, included some deployments overseas where I worked with militaries from all over the world. And then that transition was terrifying, to be honest. You go from probably the most stable job in the world into business at a time where I just had my first child. So there was a lot of uncertainty around it. There was a lot of stress. Luckily, I've got a pretty supportive wife, and it meant that we could come home and stop traveling every couple of years as you do with the military. So yeah, we made the leap of faith, and it's been the best decision I've ever made. Not that I have any ill feelings towards my military service. I absolutely loved it. It was the best experience for me as a young man, and it turned me into the person I am today. And it gave me study opportunities, things like that, and skills that have transitioned really well across to my current job.
Let's talk about Teamgate. So it's a software product. It's pretty cool. We don't use it here, but I'd love to dig deeper into that. So briefly explain, what does Teamgate do? What problem does it solve? And what are the core services?
So Teamgate is a CRM software. It's not too dissimilar feature set wise to some of the bigger CRMs on the market, but I'd say our point of difference is our customer support. I like to call it a handheld experience. So, you get the CRM software, but you almost get a free consultant as part of the package. So we focus on small businesses. We focus on first-time CRM users. There's no hidden costs. You pay your monthly fee, but you get us to assist with you. So small businesses that have never used CRM, or they might be new to the sales process, we base a lot of our processes off sales best practices, so we can help them implement or build that sales process if it doesn't already exist. We do monthly check-ins, we do quarterly business reports and quarterly reviews. So we'll set goals for them and we'll review those goals every couple of months. And then that also gives us a chance to talk to our customers. I don't know if you've spoken to many salespeople, but they often don't like to give up their time to talk to a CRM provider because they want to sell. Time is money. So that back and forth gives us a really good opportunity to keep our finger on the pulse of what our customers want. And as a small business, we can't be going and developing features that people don't want. So our customers drive our development cycles, it drives our direction. So that's where we're at. In regards to features and services, very similar to most CRMs, you've got deal management through to retention. But what sets us apart is definitely that human touch, but also we have a thing called Sales Insights. That's our key feature. So it's your reporting and analytics, which I'm sure you would be interested in as someone who works in that space. But like I said, it's all done for you. There's no setup required. There's no consultants required. There's no technical implementation required. The moment you start importing leads, start closing deals, those reports are recorded in the background, and they're all based on best practices. So if what we often see is a CEO will come to us or a sales manager and they don't know what reports they want. So there's already a preset list there. They can go into them, they can do a sales audit, they can do a funnel audit, and they can see how their business is performing, where they need to improve, and then we can come up with strategies on how to achieve that.
And tell us about the journey of Teamgate before we sort of jump into CRM, sales, and how we can give our listeners some tips around that world. Tell us about Teamgate. It's a software package, it's online, it's cloud, Australian based. So tell us a little bit about the journey of the Teamgate business, how long it's been around, and get a bit of a visualization of the business journey for our listeners.
So again, a bit like me, the journey for Teamgate's been a bit different. So Teamgate was actually founded way back in 2012 in Lithuania, so a tiny little country in Europe. And they were actually founded around the same time as Pipedrive, and they were competing heavily with Pipedrive, and they were on a very similar trajectory. The previous owners of the company decided to keep Teamgate localized and keep it in Europe and not expand. So that saw a bit of a halt to its growth. Once, there's only so many people in Lithuania. So once it sort of reached its cap, it started to plateau a little bit. And that led to the sale of Teamgate in 2021 to a private equity company. And that's when my role began with Teamgate. I moved in initially as the director of operations, and about a year later, I was promoted to CEO and have taken the reins since then and made a large push to expand Teamgate into both the US market as well as smaller markets such as Australia and other countries around the world.
So as a private equity acquirer, is it an Australian company? Is it now an Australian-owned company?
Yeah, so the private equity company is technically US, whilst two of the managing partners are Australian. So that's sort of where the connection to me came in. They're actually ex-military, and they recruited me through their military channels. So I moved into the SaaS world completely blind, quickly learned how to apply my skills into this world. And then once I got into Teamgate, I absolutely loved it. I loved everything it stood for. I love our customer base. I love that we target small businesses and we really have an opportunity to affect change.
So let's now dive in. We threw the letters CRM out a little bit in our conversation just then. And for our listeners who might not know the concept, can you just briefly explain customer relationship management and why it's crucial for businesses today?
Going way back to the origins of CRM, it was launched many, many years ago. And I think the intent back then was, as the name suggests, to improve relationships between vendors and their customers. And that initially started just with communication and email. I think that same intent runs true today. I think that it's just the scope's expanded. So you'll now see a lot of CRMs that try to do everything. It's from marketing through to SEO, through to social media, through to sales and management post-sale. So I think that initial intent runs true. For me, I think the biggest purpose of CRM is your source of truth. We work with a lot of tradies in Australia. We work with a lot of small businesses that go from using 30 Google Sheets, spreadsheets. And when we initially speak to them, we ask, what's your current performance like? They just have no handle on their current situation. So CRM also provides that source of truth. Having everything under one system, you can easily go in. It's easier to collaborate across teams, whether they're working in one office or dislocated, as we've seen through COVID. A lot of people are now working from home or working cross state or cross country. So having that single source of truth is also a massive, massive benefit of having CRM.
How has the Australian market grown? So obviously Teamgate being a cloud product obviously would have been available. Obviously focus was Lithuania and then it grew from there. How has Teamgate grown in the Australian market in terms of the post-acquisition?
Yeah, so it's growing nicely. So I love working with Australians, and I think we still have a small team at Teamgate. We haven't expanded it and hired a heap of employees. So a lot of the time I'm actually speaking to our Australian customers. There's not many CRMs you're going to jump on a Zoom meeting with the CEO to talk about strategy or sales or even support calls and how to improve their system. So it's grown nicely. We are seeing a lot of opportunities in the market in Australia because I won't say Australia's behind the times with tech, but in regards to exposure to CRM, we don't see it as much as you would in the US or Europe. So You call someone in the US to try to sell them CRM, and they'll essentially say, are you Salesforce or are you HubSpot? And if you're not, you don't even get your foot in the door. Australia probably doesn't have as much exposure. So a lot of companies are still using things like Google Sheets, spreadsheets, which for a lot of startups and small businesses is perfectly fine. But as they start to scale, they start to realize quick that they need to be able to expand and pass their systems across as their team gets bigger, which can't always be easy with Google Sheets and spreadsheets. So to come back to your original question, we're growing nicely in Australia. It'll probably lead to some hiring soon in Australia, which is great. Get some jobs locally and palm off some of those responsibilities to some employees.
So tell us a little bit of the functionality of the software. So let's say I'm an accounting firm. I want to implement Teamgate into my business. What are the things that I'd be doing? Is it all about new business in terms of, okay, we've got a lead, let's put the lead in, we've got a follow up, we've got an email. Tell us a little bit about that journey, and that's around the sales side. I'd love to know how that sort of plays around, and take us through that first lot of implementation and how we use the software to begin with.
Yeah, so a good place I like to start is our lead section in Teamgate. So we like to separate out, a lot of CRMs will just have a deals management section. So everyone's, in the one section. We separate ours out, and it's one of the points of difference. So I like to refer to it as a fishing pond to a lot of the prospects. And the lead section is what I would call is for the new business. So that's where you're going to do your prospecting, your reach out, your outreach, your B2B. And once you start to get those bites in the pond, that's when we're then going to move them into the deal section and probably hand over from your SDR, BDR through to your actual account reps. And then they're going to manage the deals from there. We can also do things like marketing from that same section. So newsletters, outreach, and the like. But Teamgate functionality, you're going to go from that initial prospecting through to the deal management, through to retention. But then the next step is everything's integrated. So you've got your Google Calendar, you've got your emails, you've got all of your account history. So that ties into both retention, but also winning back lost customers. So if I was working with you, Savan, and you left Teamgate and I've moved into the role recently and I want to know why, I can open your profile in the CRM. I can see all of the email history between you and my team. I can see all of your support tickets that you raised. I can see any key details that I've customized in that account profile. And I can outreach you and say, hey, look, we didn't do the best job in 2021. I'm sorry we lost you. What can we do to win you back? And I've got all of that context there at my fingertips. So from sales to retention, and then, as I said before, with the analytics, we can really dive into improving our efficiency and our processes by seeing the data. Everything is data driven. So we can see where we're losing deals, why we're losing deals, and then that feeds into your marketing spend, how you're approaching different markets, different locations, different ICPs.
Being a global business, Teamgate, and I'd love to, and you're obviously talking to customers around the world, how do Australian businesses compare to the rest of the world from what you've seen in terms of putting effort into both sales, in terms of utilizing software, or effort in the business to create a proper sales process, and also post that to the CRM world of customer retention and relationships? So how do we compare to the rest of the world?
I think Aussies in our nature are more in touch. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but we like to have that personal connection, but we seem to have that relationship with our customers, whereas in other regions, it's simply a business transaction. The companies that I've worked with in Australia seem to have those really well built out, robust relationships with their clients. It also comes back to not the culture, but in the US, cold outreach is massive. I don't see it as much in Australia. So I don't know about you, but I don't receive a lot of phone calls with people trying to sell me stuff over the phone. In the US, it's probably one of the priorities. So in a way, our software can facilitate that. So once they see our ability to dial from the CRM to email to SMS and do those marketing functions, it's an easier sell to some people in the US than Europe. We don't see that as much in Australia. In Australia, it's more that relationship base, whether it's finance, whether it's some buyer's agents in real estate. So they're doing phone calls, but it's not a priority. It's more, they've already got the established relationships and now they're trying to close them and manage them through that deal process. So it's more of a human touch in Australia.
The CEO is getting on calls. I'm quite impressed with that. We love stories here on the Bottom Line. I'd love for you to share a story of an Australian business that jumped on the Teamgate journey and let's call it a year later. Tell us the success story in your own words.
I'll give you two stories. One comes back to the point you just made about CEO jumping on a support call. So we won a prospect last week. The company was considering us against one of those big names that I mentioned before. They inquired about an issue with the system that they had, or they couldn't connect their email integration. They didn't know how to do it. And they inquired via our support chat. And I just said, look, let's just jump on a Zoom call. This will take 2 minutes rather than go back and forth via robot chat. Let's just jump on a Zoom call and I'll show you how to do it. So we jumped on the Zoom call. We had a really good chat. We ended up talking for 30 minutes about their business needs and what we're doing. He'd already booked in a system demo because he was trialing our system. So he booked in a system demo on the Monday and it was the Friday. And he booked the system demo with Chase, who is my head of sales. He's in the US. So I said, look, still keep your call with Chase on Monday. He turned up on Monday. They went through the demo and he kept referring to Andrew. And Chase is like, you're talking about Andrew, like Teamgate Andrew, like the boss? And the guy's like, oh, I don't know. I spoke to him on Friday. He's like, yeah, Andrew, the CEO. He's like, that guy's the CEO? And it just like blew his mind. That did not come across. Like I didn't, he's like, why? He's like, and Chase was just like, yep, that's what we do. Like he's very hands-on, but he's like, there's not many CEOs that are jumping into support chats and answering questions. So that's the first one. And we won those guys. They went with us straight away. And their reasoning was they'd already had a call with me, Chase, and almost finished their trial before they'd even heard back from the big name competitor, which I won't name. So yeah, we won those guys. And then a success story is I had an older lady who was running her own cleaning business. So she was paying us about $8 a month, not a big customer. And I was spending about an hour a week with her, just showing her how to use the system. And this was around the same time that I hired Chase, our head of sales. And he came on and he was just baffled and confused. And he's like, why? He's like, your time is worth a lot more than $8 that we're getting a month to help this lady. Like, why are we doing it? Because I was also trying to get him into the culture of this is how we do things. And I said, look, the money will come later. Whether her business grows and she needs to hire people, she's going to increase her usage. A year down the track, she was hired and moved into, believe it or not, an aviation parts company, aviation maintenance, sorry. She brought them on board and it was like 30 licenses, large deal, one of the largest deals that Teamgate has, one of the largest customers. It was great because I had the opportunity to go back to Chase and say, I told you so.
I love that. That's awesome. But for Australian businesses, we look after a lot of small businesses here at the accountancy firm. And I see a lot of businesses that don't have two parts. They don't have a structured sales process. That's one thing that I see a lot of. And the other one is they don't have a software or something to manage it. Someone that's considering moving from, let's say, a spreadsheet world to CRM world, what tips do you give them from a software provider in how they should consider that? So obviously there's lots of products out there. What are the steps? How do we go from spreadsheet world to CRM? And how do we choose the CRM software provider?
I think it's really important for people to initially come up with a plan. I don't know if you've ever heard of gap selling. Gap selling is a really good sales methodology that myself and the team love to live by, but it's focused on your current state and your future state. So really assessing your current state. What does your current business process look like? What are the current tools you're using? What's your current performance? And what's the pain? Like, what are you trying to solve with CRM? Because if the pain isn't there, it's not going to be worth the change because it's not going to be an easy transition from a spreadsheet into a CRM. You know, companies like Teamgate will make it easier, but there's still going to be a lot of change, whether that's getting your employees on board with the system, getting them to actually use the system, because the system's only as good as the input. The data in and the data out is essentially, I won't use profanities of what it used to be called when I was in the military, but the data in and the data out. If the data's good going in, then the data is good coming out. If it's bad, it's going to be bad. So first of all is assessing their current state. So do they need to make the change? Are they looking to scale? Is their current business process or sales process not working? Are they starting to lose revenue and they need to make changes quickly to overcome that? So that's the first step. And then the next is considering the future state. So what are the goals? What do you actually want to improve with a CRM and how are you going to improve it? And then do your research. Like, don't be fooled by the big shiny names, and nothing against those big shiny names. They are great. If you've got the budget and you've got the ability to hire consultants to implement the systems and things like that, go for it. But if you're a small business looking to onboard onto your first CRM, you don't have the budget, you need to be doing your research. You need to actually nail down those features that you need, or not even the features, but the pains that you want to solve. And then you need to go and find the CRM systems that solve that. Teamgate doesn't solve every pain. We're not going to be right for everyone. And I'm the first person to tell that to someone on a sales call. If I'm not a good fit, it's actually going to cause me more pain to take their money and then try to make it work. I'll refer them to a competitor with no issues if it's going to help their system and help their business processes. So yeah, assess your current state, consider your future state, and then go and do your research. Look at the key features, look at the budget, and then also consider the customer support, especially if you don't have the staff. If a CRM's going to take your money, they should also be training you and onboarding you onto that system, and make sure you're aware if there's hidden costs for that and things like that is something to really consider.
What are you seeing in terms of the trends? Obviously, in a digital world at the moment, AI is moving really fast, and the social media platforms like TikTok and started to really make some noise around how social media is being done. Tell us about the future ahead for how we communicate with our customers from a customer retention and a sales process perspective.
AI is massive, and I don't think there's any stopping it. We use it in our day to day with marketing and assisting the human. I think in the sales world, there's still going to be a need for human touch. At the end of the day, recently, some of our competitors have implemented things like AI support bots. Immediately, massive opportunity for us because the complaints were through the roof. Twitter was almost set on fire with some of our competitors implementing AI because people just want to talk to a human rather than sit on there and put in 1,000 different prompts to an AI bot and not get the answer that they need when they could just speak to a human for 30 seconds and get that answer. In saying that, I don't think we discount AI. I think there's a massive place for it within sales, but also within things like CRM. So, sales assistants, whether you could have AI working alongside you while you're on a sales call, helping you generate those next qualifying questions, assessing the tone and the behavior of the prospect, things like that. But I still think there's always going to be a need for a human in sales. And all you need to do is look at a bad sales rep versus a good sales rep. How do we make AI a good sales rep? It's almost impossible, or it's really hard. But those delineators between a good sales rep and a bad sales rep usually come down to personality, their ability to deliver, their ability to build relationships, their ability to relate to the prospect, understand their pains, interpret their body language, their behavior, and identify that there's some problem there that we can fix. So I'm not sure AI, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm not sure we can get to that level. Maybe we can. But for now, I think there's definitely a specific place for human touch within sales moving forward. But AI can definitely enhance our performance as we move into that world.
A lot of our small business owners here use accounting software packages, whether it's Xero, QBO, MyOb, and all those, plenty of them around. Does it integrate into those software packages, or is it open to many different software that it can integrate to make this thing seamless so that they all talk to one another?
So Teamgate integrates with both Xero and QuickBooks. We also have an open API, so we can connect with almost anything that can be connected to. But Xero and QuickBooks, we have what we call a native integration. So you simply log into Teamgate, turn on the integration, and it'll take you to Xero or QuickBooks to connect. And then once you're logged in, your CRM and your accounting system will talk to each other. So as you're marking deals as one, it's going to generate an invoice, push that to Xero or QuickBooks for your accounting team or your finance team to review, and then send that off as a invoice, and then it'll mark it as paid. You'll be able to view it all from within your CRM. You'll be able to see if the invoice is paid, outstanding, without leaving the actual CRM system. So we are also generating or building our own invoicing tool. So it'll be Teamgate branded. So you won't have to integrate anything. But for now, we integrate with the two big players being Xero and QuickBooks. And we've made some recent upgrades to those integrations, which I'm really excited for our customers to try out.
And what final piece of advice would you give to Australian businesses looking to improve customer interactions and satisfaction through CRM?
I guess summarizing what we've spoke about, just making sure that you're keeping that personalization. We see at the moment, I don't know if your inbox looks like mine, Savan, but I'm receiving 50 to 100 emails a day of just outreach, people trying to sell me stuff. And most of it is just generic. Be different, personalize it. Here's a tip for anyone looking to try to sell me something. If someone offers me golf balls or something, I'm probably going to likely jump on a demo and talk to you because I've recently started playing golf terribly, but that personalization, that ability to stand out, and CRM can enhance that. So understanding your buyer's journey, where they're coming from, those prospects, where they're living, what industry they're in, and how you solve those problems. So making sure you do your research when you're selecting both your prospects, but also your CRM software, making sure that you're getting those features that are going to solve your pains, as well as the support that you may need. And you may not need support, but if you're in those early stages, making sure you're at least considering it as you move into that CRM world.
Now, this was not on my list of questions to ask, but you were in the Army for 9 years and you played a leadership role. There's a lot of books being written, and people that teach leadership reflect back onto leadership in the Army. Simon Sinek talks about that quite a bit. But while I've got you, you did it 9 years. What can business owners, CEOs, leaders in business, what can they learn the most from how leadership is either taught or delivered in the Army? So the question is, when you came to business world, you're going, if these guys just did some of the stuff we did back in the Army, we do it so much better there. What is that one thing we can learn from people from the military that lead our men and women?
I think my lesson would come back to understanding that when I first finished my leadership training and moved into a command position, I was 21. So I was leading soldiers that had been in the Army for longer than I was alive. So for me to gain that trust, to build that trust in the leadership, you need to build the trust with the person. So for me, it's never asking someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. So it comes back to leading by example, but then also knowing when to delegate. You can't be the leader that does everything. You need to know when you need to interject and when you need to facilitate your staff to do their job. As an artillery officer, I wasn't an expert on how to operate the artillery gun. That was my soldier's job. So I wouldn't be expected to go down there and push my soldier out the way and load the gun myself and do that sort of stuff. My job is the tactics, the techniques, and the leadership of those guys. So knowing your role, but also being prepared to get your hands dirty, which I think Australians do pretty well, to be honest, from my experience and working with Australian business owners and leaders.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our listeners, Andrew. I've enjoyed the conversation. I have a passion for customer relationship, looking after the customer and the client. I love sales. It's a big part of what I do here at my firm. So talking to you has been exciting, and it's kind of given me that energy to reflect back into how we do customer services, customer relationship in our business. And I hope this conversation's inspired a lot of other businesses to do the same. So thank you for your time, Andrew.
Thanks, Savan. Hopefully we can do it again.
This is The Bottom Line, a show designed to help Australian businesses succeed. This podcast was produced by accountancy firm Alexander Spencer. At Alexander Spencer, we've been helping business owners realise their goals since 1952. And we play a pivotal role in developing, implementing, and supervising the business goals and strategies of our clients. To find out how we can help your business succeed, head to our website, alexanderspencer.com.au. To make sure you don't miss an episode of The Bottom Line, be sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Savan Tuna, and we'll be back next episode with more tips to help you transform your business. And that's The Bottom Line.